Good evening, my dear Exiles. I'm your friendly neighborhood November Bravo, and welcome to another retrospective review. In this first of two videos, I will be tackling a game from years long past that I'm exceptionally fond of. Star Wars Jedi Knight II, Jedi Outcast. Despite not bearing the name, it is the penultimate entry in the venerable Dark Forces series from Raven Software. It's a story-based first- and third-person shooter that sees you taking on the role of series protagonist Kyle Katarn, a soldier-turned-Jedi-turned-odd-job man, facing off against an array of familiar adversaries from across the Star Wars canon, while serving under the direction of Jedi Grand Master Luke Skywalker. The game takes place in a series of diverse locations throughout the Star Wars universe, from both movie classics to purpose-built originals. So, with all that in mind, let's take up our lightsabers, get set to jump to hyperspace, and prepare to enter a galaxy a long time ago and far, far away. This is why you should play Jedi Knight II, Jedi Outcast. As we begin our journey through the story of Jedi Knight II, we find ourselves in the cockpit of the good ship Raven's Claw, with our protagonist, Kyle Katarn, and his partner in, well, the opposite of crime, Jan Ors. A few years after the death of the Emperor and nominal dissolution of the Empire, things in the galaxy are more or less peaceful. The head of the galactic government of the New Republic, Mon Mothma, calls them up to assign them a mission to investigate potential illicit activity by the Imperial Remnant on the planet Kejim, a task that Kyle considers something of a
blue milk runs like this.
Before ending the mission briefing, she plays the recording of an intercepted transmission, which contains a series of suspicious keywords.
Shadow. We may have to the Valley of the Jedi. Reborn Warrior.
A place from the previous game in the series, where it's possible for a non-Force-sensitive individual to gain or regain the power of the Force. Of course, Mon Mothma's suspicions turn out to be correct.
So much for the blue milk run.
And upon landing, the pair encounter an installation full of Imperial Remnant.
Well, that's one way to do it.
After fighting his way into the depths of the facility, Kyle discovers just what it is they're doing here, performing experiments on a unique variety of crystal that just so happens to be capable of storing Force energy. This is troubling, to say the least. So it's time we follow the clues to another location held by the Remnant and see if we can't suss out exactly what they're doing. Next stop, Artus Prime. This old and formerly abandoned mining facility is now swarming with stormtroopers, as well as housing a panopticon-like prison where captive miners are being held in between being forced to harvest the aforementioned crystals. Kyle does what he does best, and liberates the unfortunate captives before returning to the surface to make his escape, just as the facility begins to collapse around him.
Thanks for getting us out of there, Commander. Doesn't look like we're out of this yet, though.
As he reaches the landing pad where Jan and the Raven's Claw are waiting for him, however, he encounters the mastermind behind the Imperial Remnant's latest scheme, a dark Jedi named Dasan.
Kyle Katarn? You're the legendary hero who destroyed Jarek at the Valley of the Jedi? You look like nothing more than a bantha herder.
Well, you look like an overgrown Kowakian monkey lizard, so I guess looks don't count for much. Hand her over.
You desire this woman? Come, take her.
The oversized bipedal reptile proceeds to summarily kick Kyle's ass, and then, in a moment of torment for our hero.
Enough of this charade. You're pathetic, Katarn. As a Jedi, you might have proven a worthy adversary. But without the power of the Force, you're not worth the effort it would take to strike you down. Perhaps your woman will prove to be of heartier stock. She certainly couldn't be any weaker than these colonists.
Don't you touch her.
On second thought, Tavion, kill her.
Kyle!
Dad!
Understandably devastated at the loss of his partner, Kyle returns to the Valley of the Jedi to restore his connection to the Force before traveling to the Jedi Academy on Yavin 4 to retrieve his lightsaber from its safekeeping in Luke Skywalker's hands.
Kyle, I've been expecting you.
Skywalker?
You've come for your lightsaber.
Yeah. Jan's been killed. By a Jedi. Goes by the name of...
Dasan.
You know?
I sensed a disturbance in the Force. I'll tell you about Dasan while your trial is being prepared.
The number one thing on his mind? Revenge. Not a very Jedi thing to do, is it? The humble Grand Master of the New Jedi Order is concerned about Kyle's state of mind, and so has him undertake a series of basic trials before handing over Kyle's old lightsaber, along with some information as to where he should start searching for news of the Imperial Remnant taking part in Dasan's plot.
I'm ready. What did you find out about the sun?
Not much. With the help of your ship's logs and the Republic's databases, we've tracked down the registry of Dasan's ship to a Rodian named Relo Baruch.
Relo Baruch?
You know him?
Not personally. He claims to be an honest garbage hauler, but he's really one of the most powerful criminal kingpins in all of Nar Shaddaa.
Kyle, I realize you're in pain, but you must learn to anticipate the consequences of your actions. You and Jan swore an oath to protect the Valley of the Jedi, and now that Jan's dead, you're the only person who knows where it is.
Are you saying I can't be trusted?
I'm saying that I want you to let go of your anger before it destroys you.
I don't know if I can do that. But I will give you the coordinates to the Valley of the Jedi, just to be safe.
Your plan worked, Master Dasan.
Yes, Tavion. The death of Katarn's woman has driven him mad and delivered the Valley of the Jedi into our hands. Contact Admiral Fayar and prepare the troops.
As this is where the game really kicks off, I'll pause the story recap here and suggest that you play it for yourself. Go on, my thoughts and I will still be here when you return. Now, when it comes to gameplay, Jedi Outcast is a first/third-person shooter/lightsaber-er. Given that it runs on the venerable Quake 3 engine, it's pretty twitchy. There's very little in the way of auto-aim or projectile magnetism, so if you're only used to modern-day FPSs, it's probably going to take you a little while to acclimate. The game defaults to having you in first person whenever you're shooting, and third person whenever you're wielding your lightsaber, though you can also do this from first person if you want to give it a try. Although entertaining for a minute or two, it does end up being a bit tricky. In addition to your arsenal, you also have an array of force powers that grow in both number and strength as you progress through the story. As far as weapons go, you have everything from the basic Han Solo-style pistol to a Stormtrooper's E11 blaster rifle, a flechette launcher that effectively functions as a shotgun, all the way up to more exotic fare like trip mines, grenades, and a rocket launcher. Then, of course, there's one of the game's main selling points, your lightsaber. The lightsaber duels in this game are one of its absolute highlights, with melee combat feeling appropriately weighty and tactile. You have a trio of saber styles that you accrue over the course of your journey. You start off with only medium style, a sort of jack-of-all-trades, which is decent at deflecting blaster bolts and good for dueling multiple lightsaber-wielding opponents. Next up is Fast Style, which trades comparatively weak strikes for being able to deflect a veritable hurricane of blaster fire, and can also function decently in one-on-one against weaker lightsaber-armed enemies. Finally, there's Strong Style, which uses big, heavy swings to batter opponents' lightsabers aside and carve them to pieces, though consequently, it's pretty bad at defending you from projectile attacks. When you bring your saber to bear, particularly against the legions of stormtroopers and other such Imperials arrayed against you, it doesn't take long at all to get the hang of the flow of combat. Before you know it, you'll be effortlessly carving your way through scores of white-armored stormtroopers, lopping off arms and legs, or even outright bisecting and decapitating your foes. All that said, there's also a distinct sort of pleasure that comes from marrying the opportunities afforded by your arsenal of force powers to your regular slate of firearms. You can force push incoming rockets back at their points of origin, use force speed to dodge disintegrating sniper shots, or just rip your enemy's weapons straight out of their hands with force pull. As mentioned, this is a Quake 3 engine game, so you're eminently mobile, able to do things like box strafe and bunny hop, which become doubly effective once you apply the force to them. Movement feels snappy and responsive, and anyone who's played any of the recent Doom titles should feel right at home. This goes hand in hand, so to speak, with lightsaber combat, as most encounters typically play out with the dueling parties jumping, rolling, dodging, and flipping all over the place, hurling, spinning lightsabers and force powers about with equal abandon. All told, it's immense fun, and still one of the best third-person sword-fighting mechanics that I've ever had the pleasure of coming across. While your lightsaber doesn't feel like it has quite as much heft to it as a sword you'd find in something like For Honor, given that it's not supposed to have any real weight to it, I'd say that's actually rather appropriate. Outside of combat, most gameplay sees you going from point A to point B through a variety of setting-appropriate environments. I will say that there's maybe slightly too high a quotient of gray metal corridors, but given the game's age, it's easy to forgive it a myriad of sins when it comes to the level design, especially the visuals.
That's one less problem to deal with.
As mentioned earlier, it isn't until you get your lightsaber back that the game really begins to distinguish itself from your run-of-the-mill contemporary shooter. The narrative will have you traversing the galaxy, from game-original destinations like Artus Prime to more familiar locales such as Nar Shaddaa and Cloud City on Bespin. Every now and then, you'll also come across some light puzzle solving, usually involving the use of your force powers, which is a fun and unique way to break up the standard loop of saber, shoot, push, pull, choke, zap, etc. When it comes to presentation, I feel that Jedi Outcast holds up remarkably well, especially when you take its age into account. Given the relative simplicity of the geometry capable of being rendered by the Quake 3 engine, I think it's fair to say that the game trades largely on its texture work, at least as far as visuals are concerned. And while its vanilla appearance is all well and good, it's a very simple bit of work to get things looking much cleaner and sharper with the download of some up-resed texture packs. Links to some that I recommend will be down there in the description. As for the audio side of the audiovisual state of things, there is of course the expected array of appropriate Star Wars sounds, from humming lightsabers and screaming TIE fighters, all the way to the infamous gonk droid, each one pulled directly from the Lucasfilm sound archive. And who could forget the expertly implemented instances of John Williams' legendary score, which lends that extra special science fantasy flair to your trek across the galaxy. The game also offers EAX surround sound, and while I wasn't able to get this working with my current modern setup, I do recall it being nice and immersive back when I played the game upon its initial release. Speaking of presentation and downloading mods and so forth, given that the game came out in 2002, there are a couple of things that you'll want to do to get it running properly on a modern system. Getting the game to run in widescreen instead of the 4:3 aspect ratio it was designed around is why some characters have their heads cut off in certain cutscenes. Alas, this is a necessary sacrifice. While it does boot and run without issue on Windows 10, I haven't tested it on 11. There's a tiny bit of fettling you'll need to do in order to get it to run at the resolutions typically offered by modern displays. Again, links to everything you'll need to do this will be down in the description below. Now, before we return to the story recap, I'd like to take just a moment to give my overall thoughts on the narrative and the characters that inhabit it. This being a Star Wars title, the universe that the game takes place in is already well established. For the sake of brevity, I'm not going to mention my thoughts on the decanonization of all the expanded universe stuff that came with the release of the sequel trilogy, because we'd be here forever and a day. And another day after that. In any case, as the game takes place after the conclusion of the original trilogy, it now falls under the auspices of the Legends continuity. This is all well and good, because even though said alternate timeline didn't exist back when the game was developed, it gave the wonderful folks at Raven Software more or less carte blanche to devise an original story, populated largely with original characters.
Captain Katarn.
To elaborate a bit on the earlier character synopsis, our protagonist is a man by the name of Kyle Katarn. A former Imperial officer, Kyle became disillusioned with the Imperial tyranny he was forced to witness at the hands of his cohorts, and defected to the Rebel Alliance, where he met his future partner and collaborator, the smuggler Jan Ors. As a veteran of many conflicts on both sides of the war, it wasn't until well into adulthood that Kyle discovered he was a Force sensitive. With a little bit of guidance from his deceased father Morgan Katarn, Kyle taught himself the Jedi ways and subsequently managed to foil an evil plot by the Dark Jedi Jarek and his band of Dark Force users. Despite being on the up and up where the Jedi arts were concerned, Kyle briefly had a brush with the dark side, and was only able to return to the light with the help of his then Padawan, the future Mrs. Skywalker, Mara Jade. These events were so troubling to Kyle that he opted to cut himself off from the Force entirely, becoming a smuggler, mercenary, and odd job man in service of the New Republic following the Empire's defeat. When the game begins, Kyle is touring the galaxy with his partner and possibly, maybe, sort of, kind of, will they, won't they romantic interest, Jan Ors, in the interest of preserving the recently achieved peace in the era of the New Republic. Spoiler warning, from here on out, I'll be covering the remainder of the narrative, so, if you'd rather experience it for yourself, which I highly recommend you do, skip to the timecode on screen now. Now that Kyle has retrieved his lightsaber and gotten a tip from Luke as to where best to put it to use, it's off to the crime and grime-ridden urban canyons of Nar Shaddaa in search of the Rodian gang boss, Relo Baruch. Upon landing on Nar Shaddaa, Kyle makes his way to a nearby cantina, where some familiar music is playing, and a whole mess of gangsters are standing around, giving him the old side-eye. While the initial attempt to question the bartender with the delightfully odd speech pattern doesn't give us any new information, aside from the fact that this man is shady as hell, it does result in a massive brawl, and a perfect opportunity to test out your new lightsaber.
I'm no Jedi. I'm just a guy with a lightsaber and a few questions. Alright, enough fooling around. Where's Relo?
Please, noble Jedis, not in the faces. Relo's office is on higher levels. Follow the garbage collectors.
What follows is a force-jumping romp from building to building as we find a way out of the area and into Relo's waste disposal compound. Given the incredible size of this place, it's apparent that Mr. Baruch is no small-time garbage collector. His reputation as a force to be reckoned with in terms of handling other people's trash is well-deserved. After spending much too long trying to figure out how to get out of this one damn room, it's one of the only real concessions to the game's relative age. The places you're supposed to go and the ways you're supposed to get there aren't always immediately apparent or easy to find. No telltale yellow paint, for instance. We eventually find our way further into the facility, chopping down legions of Relo's thugs, only to come across a friendly face with an equally familiar voice.
Kyle Katarn?
That's right, folks. It's...
Lando, what are you doing here?
What does it look like I'm doing? I'm sitting in a cell. What about you?
in some cases better known as Billy D. Williams. They actually got the man himself to voice Lando, so he sounds all kinds of authentic. It turns out that in the course of his investigation, Lando stumbled across the name of our big bad. Whatever's happening on Bespin sounds like it's involved with the Remnant faction under the command of a familiar, lightsaber-wielding, evil wizard. On our way to try and find the means to free Lando, Kyle finally comes across Relo, who springs a trap on us. Kyle handily fights his way out of it, but by the time it looks like he's caught up to the gangster, the chunky Mafia Don has disappeared, once again, leaving us grasping at straws. We open the cells and make our way back to Lando, and from there proceed through the depths of the prison block to the landing pad.
Ah, there's my baby.
Where Lando's ship, the Lady Luck, is waiting. Time to make tracks to Cloud City.
Yeah, that's right, R2. I just set a new course. We're going to Cloud City.
In the hopes of catching Dasan and his Imperial lackeys red-handed at, whatever it is they're doing. It's time to take off, but just as the pair of old friends hop aboard the Lady Luck, Relo and a small army of thugs make one final attempt to stop us from fleeing Nar Shaddaa. Alright, bring it on. We put the Rhodian crime lord on ice, and so, with the Lady Luck freed from her shackles, Kyle and Lando take to the skies and depart the Smuggler's Moon. Next stop,
hello to Cloud City.
Upon arriving at Cloud City, we find ourselves situated just over a precipitous drop down into the dun-colored clouds below. Well, looks like it's time to get climbing. Wow, that was a bit of a dick move. What level designer put that air cannon there? We make our way up the shaft, and after slicing and dicing our way through a horde of gangsters, find ourselves at the lowest level of Cloud City proper. This is starting to bring back some fond cinematic memories. The ascent is, of course, full of danger, as an array of gangster sharpshooters try to chip away at our shields and health, but it's nothing that Kyle can't handle. From here, we're able to enter a very familiar-looking shaft, and in contrast to Luke's near-fatal plunge at the end of Empire, are able to ride the wind up to the start of the next area. At last we've made it to the lower entrance of Cloud City proper.
I sense a disturbance in the Force, but there's something strange about it.
However, just as we're preparing to make our way into the corridors at the bottom of the city, we find that there's more than just blaster-wielding criminals attempting to bar our progress. An ominous, mysterious-looking figure wearing a hood stands before us, blocking access to our intended destination, and he's armed with a lightsaber. Well, that's unexpected. Whatever the Star Wars version of 10 points to Gryffindor is, if you saw that coming. This is the first of many encounters we'll have with a new class of enemy, artificially created Force users known as the Reborn. They are the results of the experiments we encountered in the first few levels, which were successful after Dasan and Tavion followed Kyle to the Valley of the Jedi. Dear, oh dear, I suppose that's what you get for being careless, Kyle. While the Reborn come in a variety of colors, denoting various levels of skill and power, for the moment, they're barely a threat, as Kyle easily outclasses them in almost every regard. Once you've spent a few encounters getting used to saber-on-saber combat, the greatest danger they really pose is giving you a headache, with the minute selection of increasingly irritating threats and taunts they spout far too often.
Where are you going, Jedi? Where are you hiding, weakling? I know where you are, Jedi. Do you fear me?
After passing through the famous Carbonite Freezing Chamber, another iconic Star Wars location, and taking on a few more Reborn, we meet up with
the droid Lando told me about,
which we now have the delightful task of escorting through the following section. At the start of the next level, we're introduced to a slightly better class of Star Wars gangster, the Trandoshans. With their durable reptile hides and Imperial heavy repeaters, these guys are a step up from the previous selection of Rhodians, Weequays, and Gran that we've encountered thus far. Luckily for us, they don't seem to understand how to use the weapon's secondary fire, so we only have to deal with the low-damage, high-volume barrages of metallic bolts that they send our way. This level is characterized by a number of ambushes, as the various minions in Dasan's employ attempt to halt our progress through the halls of Cloud City, while we guard the astromech droid. Like all contemporary escort missions, it's a bundle of fun, as the droid moves about as fast as frozen molasses running uphill. But at least the enemies seem more inclined to keep Kyle in their crosshairs, rather than putting an end to the vulnerable little droid. We also start to see signs, beyond the Reborn's existence anyway, of the presence of the Imperial Remnant, which means that in addition to the usual slate of underworld scum, we can expect to be dealing with stormtroopers any minute now. After we deposit the droid in an appropriately sized hidey hole, we find one of the few surviving officers of Cloud City's security.
Don't shoot! We're on your side! We've got teams trying to take back this sector of the city, but it's no small task. Our men will help you wherever they can.
They're doing their level best to take back this part of the city from the roving crews of thugs, though apparently to little effect. The streets of Cloud City have become a battleground. Looks like it's about time for some judicious lightsaber application to turn the tide. Unfortunately, with blaster bolts flying every which way, and as he's still getting his groove back, Kyle is none too careful with just how he deflects them, making it
all too easy
to accidentally end a friendly officer or two, turning them against you for the remainder of the level. Like many AI in games of this generation, they seem to share a sort of hive mind. So, the second you piss one of them off, they all start gunning for you. After making it through the streets that are choked with Rhodian snipers and various other alien ne'er-do-wells, we open the way to the next area and find ourselves facing down a mini-boss battle of sorts. This pair of Reborn effectively function as a skill check, making sure you're confident enough in your saber skills before letting you proceed towards the challenge at the end of Cloud City. As the Reborn are still relatively weak, taking on 2 isn't that much worse than taking on 1. But if you are struggling to get a grip on how Kyle handles the lightsaber in general, this fight can be a bit tricky. Not to worry though, worst case, that's what they made safe scumming for. If you're feeling especially brave, you can even try and take them on using your ranged weapons instead of your lightsaber, although I don't recommend that. Coming to the end of the level, we've at last found ourselves staring down the business end of an Imperial firing squad. Mercifully, dealing with stormtroopers is relatively old hat at this point. They're hardly more threatening than the gangsters that we've been carving up by the truckload for the past few levels. And now we've got the lightsaber, these poor mooks won't know what hit them.
Stormtroopers. What's the Remnant doing here?
You've already seen several Reborn and some TIE fighters, Kyle. You're just now realizing that the Empire's here? On the landing pad above, we encountered the deadliest foe we've faced off with so far. A Reborn clad in black with a red hood. These guys are the boss class of Reborn. Strong in the Force, capable of using all 3 lightsaber styles, and second only to another type of foe that we've yet to encounter. One rather tense duel later, with the boss Reborn and the officers he was guarding dead, we've got the key we need to move on to the next level. From here on out, encountering the Reborn will become a semi-regular occurrence, with at least a few of them stashed away in various corners throughout the rest of the game. That's right, you hooded jackasses. You're not special anymore. How's that feel? Now that we've made it through the streets of Cloud City, we've finally arrived at one of the ritzier locales. Between the statuary decorating the corridors, the fancy light fixtures, and elaborate stonework on the walls, it's clear that this place has a definite bank account threshold for those who wish to enter. Luckily for Kyle, his lightsaber and status as a New Republic agent work just as well.
Thank the Maker, we're saved. Fine, be that way.
After making our way to a control room overlooking a landing pad outside, we see a ship bracketed by a squad of stormtroopers and an ominous-looking silhouette. With this group now alerted to our presence, there's only one thing to do: bring that lightsaber to bear, and take them all out before they can get away.
Surround him!
We emerge onto the landing pad and find that while the boss reptile himself isn't present, he did go to the trouble of sending his right-hand lady. Tavion takes a moment to taunt Kyle and needle him about his emotions before dropping some exposition about what exactly the Remnant has been up to. It turns out that when Kyle went to the Valley of the Jedi to restore his connection to the Force,
hundreds of Dasan's loyal followers
followed him, and is now using the Valley's power as a Force nexus, combined with the experiments we stumbled across at the beginning of the game to grant the power of the Force to many of his followers. This is where the Reborn come from. Young Imperial hopefuls artificially instilled with Force sensitivity, given a lightsaber and a swift pat on the rear, before being told to get out there and slice up whatever parts of the New Republic and Jedi Order they can get their hands on. At this point, Kyle decides he's had just about enough, and the game's first true boss fight begins.
Stop talking!
Tavion is, well, she's not the toughest challenge in the game, not by a long shot. I can think of some jumping puzzles that are more of a pain. But she's certainly the most difficult opponent we've had to deal with so far. The game doesn't give you anything as pedestrian as a boss health bar or equivalent, so your only real option is just to hack away at her while trying not to get hurled off the platform by her rapid-fire force pushes, which honestly are a much more likely cause of death than Tavion's lightsaber. She can do everything you can do, in some cases better than, and most of your force powers don't work on her. So it's up to you and your lightsaber, and probably liberal use of the quick save/quick load function to get the job done.
Oh, no you don't!
After we deal a sufficient amount of damage to the Dark Apostle, she quickly finds that maybe taunting Kyle about his anger at Jan's death wasn't the best of ideas. Tavion flips like a switch and goes from berating Kyle to begging for her life, at which point we're able to get some useful info out of her, our next destination. And, even more importantly, it turns out that Jan isn't dead after all. Thank the Force, as they say. Now, we've got an extra objective. We're going to stop Dasan and the Remnant, and rescue Jan. After mastering himself and deciding to spare her life, Kyle sends Tavion running for the hills with her tail between her legs, something that he might find wasn't the best idea at some indeterminate point in the future.
You heard me. Go and pray that I find your master before he finds you.
Still, we've got other issues to worry about right now. Time to hit the road once again. We've got an insurrection to stop and a Jan to rescue. Onward to the Remnant's cairn installation.
Thanks for the help, Lando, but I thought you were going to be working with the security forces.
I was, but I got a better idea. What are you doing in that hauler?
I'm heading for the Lenico belt.
Lenico? What's Dasan doing there? That asteroid belt is in the middle of nowhere.
I don't know, but I'm gonna find out. Jan may be there.
Jan's alive?
Maybe. I don't know. Listen, you've got to find Skywalker and tell him that the Valley of the Jedi has been invaded.
What? What's the Valley got to do with this?
Just tell him.
Okay, I don't understand half of it, but okay. May the Force be with you, Kyle.
We'll see.
After sneaking our way aboard the Remnant's asteroid-bound cairn installation on Tavion's shuttle, we find ourselves in a labyrinth of stark gray corridors and hangars, surrounded on all sides by stormtroopers and their commanding officers. Looks like this place is going to be one big pain-in-the-ass maze. We clear out what's effectively a small army of stormtroopers, and as we're searching for where to go next, who should we run into but Grandmaster Luke Skywalker himself? It turns out that while we've been in pursuit of Dasan and the Remnant, Luke has been doing some detective work of his own. He did manage to evict Dasan and the Remnant from the Valley of the Jedi, but not before the villainous Chordate managed to infuse the Force into an unknown number of his subordinates. In short, this could be bad, or it could be real bad.
Dasan has succeeded in infusing his troops with the power of the Force.
Oh, Sith spit. I think I ran into one of them on Bespin.
Yes, but we've got an advantage due to our training and discipline.
After going back to fend off an ambush, Kyle and Luke finish filling each other in on everything they've learned. The possibility that Jan might still be alive, the presence of Imperial scientist Admiral Galak Fyar, and the fact that the Remnant is using the lightsaber-resistant mineral known as cortosis in the designs of their new Force-wielding warriors. So saying, they exchange the typical Jedi farewell and part ways.
May the Force be with you, Kyle.
Yeah, you too, Luke.
Speaking of lightsaber fights, with the start of this level, we've now gained access to the second of the 3 lightsaber styles. Fast style. Not so great for dueling, but excellent for fending off the scores of blaster-wielding enemies that we'll be mowing down for the remainder of the game. We progress deeper and deeper into the depths of the Cairn installation, finding what seems to be a worryingly efficient assembly line for all kinds of serious military hardware. Just what exactly are Dasan and the Remnant planning? Pushing forwards past a number of jumping puzzles and seemingly endless numbers of stormtroopers, we encounter a whole new type of enemy. A pair of heavy-footed combat mechs who are just way too enthusiastic about getting all up in Kyle's face. You would think, given they're only armed with ranged weapons, that they would have been programmed to attack from a distance, but hey, what do I know? I'm not a sci-fi robotics engineer. All I can really say about them is that they're extremely tanky, able to soak up more damage than pretty much any other enemy in the game, aside from maybe the bosses, and are way too aggressive for my personal comfort. Thankfully, in short order, we also come across a new weapon, specifically designed for the disabling and destruction of mechanical opponents. This is known as the Destructive Electromagnetic Pulse 2 gun, or DEMP-2 for short. It's almost entirely useless against anything other than robots. Kyle could probably take down a stormtrooper more easily by just poking them to death. But when it comes to anything mechanical, it rips through them like a hot lightsaber through space butter. Or something like that. Another one of our new tools is the enhanced version of the classic Jedi mind trick.
These aren't the droids you're looking for.
Before, where it would simply render enemies stunned and unable to act, now Kyle appears to have gotten enough of his mojo back that he can actually convince enemies to turn on each other. It's immense fun to open a door to a room full of stormtroopers, mind trick a few of them into turning on their comrades, and then shut the door again and just listen to them sort it out.
What? There's nowhere to hide.
After facing off with another couple of Reborn and their constant companions, the game's most repetitive voice lines,
"Where are you going, Jedi?"
we come to a maze full of laser traps and lightsabers. Kyle emerges into a long cylindrical chamber built around a gigantic turbine, probably meant to be the base's main power generator. The electrical current on this thing is so strong that not even God mode can save you from it. We fight our way across the rotating death trap and wind up at the bottom of a towering, skyscraper-sized shaft, and following a hazardous gondola ride around the base of it, during which we're pelted by rockets, Kyle slowly but surely hops, skips, jumps, and elevators his way up to the top, leading us to the final level of the Cairn installation.
What kind of technology is this?
At the start of the next level, our first encounter deposits us in a room very clearly designed to be a combat arena. It's here where we encounter our deadliest foe yet, the ultimate culmination of Dasan's efforts using the Valley of the Jedi to empower his forces. A Shadow Trooper. These are the guys armored in cortosis that Luke mentioned earlier. They have all the skills and powers of the top-ranked Reborn, married to lightsaber-resistant armor, and the ability to turn invisible, which is something that not even Kyle gets to do. Plus, unless you have some kind of superhuman ability to mash your fire button at something close to relativistic speeds, they always win saber clashes, leaving you on the receiving end of a mouthful of red lightsaber every time you lock blades. Put simply, they're a real pain in the ass to fight. And, joy of joys, they almost always seem to come in pairs.
Or I'll shoot.
That armor seems to resist my lightsaber. I think I can guess how they're using the cortosis.
Next up, we're treated to one of those delightfully early 2000s gameplay tropes, a stealth section in a game not designed around stealth mechanics.
There's too many of them. I'll never get through this using firepower. Stealth may be a wiser choice here.
Basically, in this segment, Kyle decides that despite the literal hundreds of Imperials he's been mowing down, like stalks of wheat before the blade of the Reaper himself, in this room there's just too gosh darn many of them for him to take on at once.
This is an alarm control. I don't want anyone turning this on.
956 reporting in. Situation normal. Yes, I'm there, but I don't see anything.
So, while you're sneaking around, if you happen to get spotted, whoever it is will sprint for a nearby security panel like their life depends upon it and trigger the alarm, resulting in an instant game over. Worst of all, this mechanic persists throughout the remainder of the level, even after it appears that we've made it past the intended quote-unquote stealth section. I even tried it with the enemy ability to notice Kyle turned off, and it still wound up with the alarm getting triggered. So, I guess whoever designed this level was just determined beyond all reason to ensure you followed the rules. Somebody call the third echelon and get me Sam Fisher.
All those junkers are tiny. You've never been on a Nebulon B escort frigate? Or how about an assault frigate? What are you, a commando? No, I've just been part of small operation. Well, I've been on a Star Destroyer several times. Even engaged a Mon Calamari Star Cruiser once. What happened? Oh, not much. We were already heavily damaged, so we basically turned and ran once we got a full scan on them.
We make our way slowly but surely around the various sections of the hangar, looking for a way onto the ship that's docked in the center of it. This big Star Destroyer-looking sucker is our ultimate goal, the Doom Giver, Desan's flagship and our ticket out of here. Plus, if our gargantuan gecko friend is holding Jan anywhere, it's gonna be somewhere aboard this vessel.
That's Luke, and Dasan.
Upon finally scooting around the upper level and making it onto the Doomgiver via the strangely tiny exterior door, Kyle stops to watch a sudden lightsaber duel between Luke and Dasan, who apparently ran into each other at some point while shopping at the Cairn installation duty-free outside the departure gate or something. The oversized Anole tries to bury Luke beneath a mountain of debris before boarding the ship and casting off from the dock, but luckily, Grandmaster Skywalker is a bit sharper than that, and manages to extricate himself just as the Doomgiver drifts away and jumps to hyperspace. Next up, tracking down the second-in-command of the Remnant, the evil genius and Imperial Admiral, Galek Fayar. Even though Dasan's name is on the insurance form, technically the Doomgiver is his ship, so the smug bastard ought to be aboard somewhere. Oh, and hopefully we can rescue Jan. I suppose that's important too. As the next level begins, the Doomgiver leaps into hyperspace, giving Luke just enough time to contact Kyle with an updated objective. Find the communication center and get in touch with Rogue Squadron so they can blow it the fuck up before it reaches its intended destination. Sounds easy enough, right? Now that we're about 3/4 of the way through the game, we also get our mitts on the final lightsaber style, Strong style, as so far we've only seen Boss Rank Reborn and Shadow Troopers making use of it. This will be the first time we've had the chance to wield this purpose-built dueling form. Though at first it might look a little strange, almost like Kyle is swinging around a heavy two-handed broadsword, a little incongruous given that his blade is made out of weightless plasma, you get used to it pretty quick. The swings are slow but wide, and deal high damage to make up for their lower frequency. So now, between fast, medium, and strong styles, we've got the complete kit to deal with any combat situation we might find ourselves in. In terms of architecture and design, the interior of the Doomgiver is very similar to the Cairn installation that we just left. Lots of boxy gray corridors punctuated here and there by wider hangar spaces.
Did you see that?
While making progress towards the first of our objectives, we also come across a new enemy type. Delightfully creepy interrogation droids, first seen menacing Princess Leia in A New Hope. These guys are capable of giving you a little jab, which makes your vision and controls go all wobbly, as if Kyle's been hitting the Corellian ale a little too hard. Nothing a bit of force lightning can't handle, though. After a bit of puzzle solving, we open the way to the next section via the intra-ship tram system, which deposits us at our first objective, the ship's communication center. This task necessitates quite a bit of tricky platforming, but after jumping up, down, and, yes, all around, Kyle manages to get the correct frequency to summon the rogues keyed in. Rogue Squadron Commander Wedge Antilles gives us another sub-objective. Disable the ship's shields so that Rogue Squadron have one less obstacle in between their proton torpedoes and the eventual burning wreck of the Doomgiver.
Katarn, good to hear your voice. We've locked onto your signal and are in pursuit. That is one whalodon of a ship you hooked, Kyle.
Can you bring her down?
Maybe, but I'd feel a lot better about our chances if somebody on the inside were working to disable the ship's shield array.
All crew members prepare to drop out of hyperspace.
With the path to the Doomgiver's destruction now firmly in our sights, it's time to press on and continue our search for both Admiral Thaaaaat and our dear Jan Ors. As we're preparing to move on, the massive Remnant capital ship drops out of hyperspace above Yavin 4, the location of the Rebel base from A New Hope, and the current site of Luke's Jedi Academy.
Great.
Now we come to one of my favorite levels.
I hear the new Shadow Troopers have performed better than expected.
That doesn't bode well for us.
Yeah, we'll probably be replaced in no time.
Give us that armor and we do just as well.
Between the more diverse array of combat spaces and enemies that populate them, this level is just buckets of fun. Before proceeding through the sequence of hangar bays that lie between us and the prison block, we get a chance to lend Rogue Squadron a bit of assistance. An elevator takes us down to a console connected to one of the Doomgiver's belly turrets, allowing us to turn the Imperials' weapons on their own TIE fighters. It's not a required objective, and doesn't actually affect anything going forwards. It's just a fun little mini-game.
That's one less fighter to worry about.
Anyways, after popping a few TIE fighters like plastic ducks at a carnival, time to get a move on. Jan's gotta be around here somewhere, doesn't she? A few more Shadow Troopers and rooms packed to the brim with Stormtroopers later, not to mention a 2-on-1 duel with a pair of Boss Reborn, we finally find the prison block where Jan is being held.
Jan.
Well, you certainly took your sweet time.
Our lady friend does her best Princess Leia impression, and she and Kyle have a heartfelt reunion.
I'm happy to see you too.
I thought you were dead.
Dead? No. In pain? Yes. Dasan and his thugs must have burned out half a dozen interrogation droids trying to get me to crack.
After finally airing some pent-up feelings and putting the clues together to figure out just what Dasan has planned, Jan points Kyle toward the shield generators, and the two of them part ways. On to the Doomgiver's final level.
Don't do something stupid like die on me.
And put you through the same misery I've been through? Not on your life.
This whole map is centered around a wide, circular chamber that sees you trekking back and forth across it as you unlock doors and gain access to various areas throughout the level. Progressing deeper into the core of the Doomgiver's shield generators, we eventually reach the heart of the mechanism.
This is it, the shield generator. Hang in there, rogues. Things are about to get easier.
Just as Kyle is preparing to blow the whole thing sky high, it's revealed that we're not alone, after all. It seems that Admiral Thaaaaat has finally decided to put in an appearance. Clad in a golden suit of thoroughly extravagant power armor, he smarms at us for a moment and reveals his evil plan. That upon wiping out the Jedi, his intent is to ascend the vacant Imperial throne and bring about the Empire Resurgent as its new leader. What Dasan will have to say about that, we never get to find out.
Within hours, Dasan will have eradicated those annoying Jedi, clearing the way for my ascent as the leader of the new Empire. I, Galak Fayar I, the genius who conceived of the Shadow Armor, will rule the galaxy with a Cortosis fist. Worlds will tremble, stars will shudder.
Your shields will fall.
His soliloquy finished, we're thrust into our second proper boss battle. Compared to the fight with Tavion, which was just a straight-up lightsaber duel, this encounter is a bit more nuanced. The Admiral's suit of armor is equipped with a really irritating energy shield, which can take a tremendous amount of punishment. It also has a nasty habit of zapping you and throwing you across the room if you so much as touch it. However, after Kyle manages to deliver a sufficient amount of damage to drop the shield, all that's left is to shoot the antenna sticking up behind his head, permanently disabling the barrier. From there on, it's just a knockdown, drag-out race to the bottom, in terms of remaining health. Once his shield is down, however, Gallic takes a leaf out of his Mechanical Creations playbook and does his best to stay as close to on top of us as possible. This rapidly becomes very annoying, because every time he smacks Kyle with his massive claw, it sends him flying, which we then have to spend several seconds recovering from while he stomps toward us, preparing to deliver another backhand. Rinse, repeat, ad nauseum. After we finally manage to deal the killing blow to
Gallic Fire the First,
things begin to happen very quickly. With the shields down, Rogue Squadron has been applying their deadly expertise to the Doomgiver's hull, meaning we have very little time left to get out of here before joining the Imperial crew as they go down in flames. All that's left is to navigate a fun little zero-gravity section and rendezvous with Jan in the escape pod that she's managed to procure.
Come on, this place is falling apart.
Couldn't happen to a nicer ship either.
We eject from the ship just in time as Rogue Squadron makes their final run, sending the Remnant flagship tumbling towards the planet's surface in flames. Oh. Or, okay, I guess that might have been understating it a bit. Now, with our dynamic duo plummeting to the surface of Yavin 4, we've just got to survive the landing and make our way to the Jedi Academy for one final showdown.
If we get out of this alive, remind me never to do that again.
Upon exiting the escape pod, Kyle and Jan share a kiss that feels like it's been a long time coming.
Go.
As Jan heads off to join the New Republic forces in the air, Kyle begins a long and very damp trek through the swamps. The only new thing we really have to worry about in this level are the green-armored swamp troopers, which are like stormtroopers, but
swamp troopers, I should have figured.
They take a little more punishment than the regular rank and file, but it's nothing our man can't handle. Aside from that, there's the usual assortment of Reborn, Shadow Troopers, and so on, but with the help of our newly acquired level 3 Force Lightning, these encounters are basically a breeze. Speaking of Force powers, with your fully leveled up Force Grip, you can do another fun little trick. Grab an unfortunate Stormtrooper, hold them over your head, and give them a quick Force push. This will send them high enough to trigger the death by falling flag, leading to them dying from a fall of about 10 or 12 feet. This level is filled with all sorts of lovely little details, from the mist and fog drifting across the surface of the murky water, to the sparks that flare along the length of Kyle's lightsaber blade as the rain hits it. While it may be relatively low fidelity given the game's age, it's nice to see little touches like that. They really go a long way towards reinforcing the game world's atmosphere. Oh, and was anybody else surprised to find that Kyle could swim? I figured that given the era this game came out in, treading in anything deeper than about ankle-high water would be an instant death. But it turns out that with the help of a super janky swimming animation, he's all set. Aside from a few pairs of Shadow Troopers and a small tussle between some Republic troops and a cohort of Swamp Troopers, the only real encounter of note is with another ATST, which you can just take down in the usual way. And speaking of ATSTs, we have one more little bit of local landscape to traverse before we arrive at the final level. After passing through the wreckage of a downed Imperial drop pod, Kyle finds himself amidst a warren of stony canyons. But instead of traversing it on foot, this time we're afforded the opportunity to hop into the driver's seat of one of the famous chicken walkers. This thing is armed to the teeth, blasters, twin-linked heavy cannons, and rockets. And failing all that, you can always just step on anyone who gets in your way. They are a bit fragile, and aiming is kind of a pain since you can't switch to first person, and the body of the walker tends to get in the way of your view. But all told, it's a nice change of pace before we arrive at the final level. All told, I'd say the Swamps of Yavin 4 are one of the game's weaker levels. Between the lack of notable story beats, you're basically just traversing from point A to point B, and how confusing they are to navigate, they're just not as fun to romp around compared to some of the other environments. Everything kind of looks the same, so it's very easy to get turned around and have a hard time figuring out where you're supposed to go. That said, thankfully this is offset by the fact that the swamps are one of the shortest levels. Thus, it doesn't take long for us to make our way to our final destination, the Jedi Academy. The Academy grounds are the site of a pitched battle between the Remnant's forces, the Jedi students and teachers, and the on-site New Republic troops. The Empire has brought everything it can. Most of the stormtroopers you'll face off with in these last few levels are armed to the teeth with late-game weapons like the rocket launcher and flechette shotgun. Plus, you'll have the usual array of Reborn in all the colors of the rainbow, backed up here and there by the occasional shadow trooper. Luckily, your allies, especially the Jedi, don't mess around, and are more than capable of handling themselves. After making our way through the hangar and training areas, jumping in to assist with various lightsaber brawls where we can, we finally manage to find Dasan, who retreats into the tunnels beneath the temple. Time to go lizard hunting. What follows is a trek through a series of force trials designed to test those intent on progressing to the heart of the temple, deeper and further down through corridors full of traps and small puzzles. But, at last, after dealing with illusions,
your efforts are in vain.
Hidden pits, lots of fire and crumbling ceilings, we make it to the chamber at the temple's heart, where Dasan is waiting for us.
Welcome, Kyle Katarn. Welcome to the future.
Your future's looking pretty grim, Dasan.
After exchanging a few barbs, Dasan pulls the classic dark side, join me and you'll become stronger, etc., shtick. But at this point, Kyle knows better, and is having none of it. Despite not really having any hope for the success of this ploy, Kyle does make a counter-offer, just on the off chance that Dasan feels like forsaking his nefarious ways and redeeming himself.
Shadow troopers are being mopped up by real Jedi, ones who've been trained to use the Force. The rest blew up with your ship.
What a pathetic ruse. Dasan to Fayar. Admiral, I was wrong about you, Katarn. Your failure as a Jedi hasn't weakened you. It's only made you stronger. Come, join me. You know in your heart that you'll never truly be one of them.
Maybe, maybe not, but I know I won't be alone. How about you, Dasan? Even now, after all this pain, it's not too late. Come, join us.
You weak fool!
Alas, the evil reptile has no such intentions, and so, the final fight begins.
Force will betray you to me.
The ensuing boss battle is pretty much just like the Tavion fight, except Dasan has a bit more health and we are much better equipped with the Force this time around. Time to finally get our own back, after that ass-kicking he gave us the first time we met. But, you know, in a very serene, not getting revenge kind of way. That wouldn't be very Jedi of Kyle, now would it?
Save your strength, fool.
With our nemesis finally down for the count, all that's left is to see how things wrap up. The ending cutscene is short, but sweet. Kyle reunites with Jan, who's helping corral the remaining remnant forces, all of whom have surrendered. The newly romantic pair have a final conversation with Luke before departing for some much-earned R&R.
Kyle, Jan.
Someday you're gonna have to teach me how to do that.
Thanks for taking care of the Raven's Claw.
It was the least I could do for the pair of mercenaries who saved the Jedi Academy. I know you've probably heard this before, but the New Republic is forever in your debt.
You should have known it would take a failed Jedi to take out another failed Jedi.
Kyle, you were never a failure.
Luke,
I know. I'll be happy to hold your lightsaber for safekeeping.
No, I think I'll keep it.
Ha! I knew it! Lando owes me 5 credits.
Are you sure this is what you want, Kyle?
Look, I'm not saying I'm ready to join the Academy or anything like that. I mean, before I do anything, I figure that Jan and I have earned a long vacation on the beaches of Spyra. And after that, well...
After that, we'll see.
Yeah.
Take your time, Kyle. We'll still be here when you're ready.
Thanks, and may the Force be with you, Luke.
And so, play that famous music and roll those credits. And that's it. That's Jedi Knight II, Jedi Outcast. All told, I think it's a really solid first and third person shooter. Between the Quake engine giving it fast, snappy mechanics, the super enjoyable implementation of lightsaber combat and force powers, the interesting, if somewhat limited array of both classic and original Star Wars locales, all wrapped up with a setting-appropriate narrative bow that puts you in the role of one of the expanded universe's most badass characters, it's a great game overall, even today. While the modern gaming landscape is a lot broader, with a good many more options in terms of the types of gameplay offered by Jedi Outcast, back in the day when it was first released, it was pretty close to unique. So, whether we're judging it by the standards of 2002 or 2025, I can absolutely say with zero reservations that I recommend you give Jedi Outcast a try. You can find it almost anywhere for $10, if not less. And if you can find it packaged with Jedi Academy for a bundle price, well, so much the better. In any case, thank you all so much for taking the time to watch this. I sincerely hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to stick around, as I'll be back next time with my counterpart retrospective on the follow-up to Jedi Outcast, Jedi Academy. Until then, if you enjoyed the video, I'd greatly appreciate it if you'd take just a second to leave a like or a comment. And if you want to see more from me, then why not subscribe? We've got some great stuff that releases regularly, in addition to these retrospective reviews. Plus, we've got a Discord. It's a really fun little community, and we would love to have you join us. Anyways, that's all for now. Take care until next time. This is November Bravo.